We earlier spoke to Emmanuel Matambo, Research Director at the University of Johannesburg Center for Africa-China Studies, on his views on what this session means for Africa.
Africa is closely, as usual, watching the proceedings, even though obviously in the last week we have our attention was exercised towards the big election that was happening in Nigeria. But still, Africa has a keen eye on the People's Republic of China for at least three reasons. The first reason is that Africa wants to see how China plans to reopen its economy after it abandoned its zero COVID tolerance. The second thing, obviously, is how China will appoint whether or not Li Qiang will be confirmed as the Premier of the People's Republic of China, and that with the impact that he will bring as well in terms of his business savvy, in terms of Africa's foreign relations. The third and final thing, obviously, is China's global outlook, because as you would know, this year South Africa is chairing the BRICS. So obviously Africa has a keen eye exactly on the priorities that President Xi Jinping, the CPPCC and the NPC will put on China's relations with the developing world, most especially. One of the most commendable and admirable things about China, starting from dating way back to 1978, has been adaptability, resilience, and the setting of realistic targets that have almost always been met by China. We will hear at the two sessions that China will present the government report work for what has happened last year, and then to set out the plans for the next 5 years. So that actually gives Africa an impetus as well, even though in the rest of in most African countries we depend on periodical elections, but we can set out certain policies within certain specific administrations and then work towards achieving those. But obviously we need as well to adapt to how the world is changing. And I think that is one of the things that has really helped China to develop at the staggering rate that it has developed in the last 45 years. I expect at least 5 things that will help China. The first thing obviously will be the ratification of President Xi Jinping as president of China for another term. He was already voted last year in October as the General Secretary of the party. So now he will be ratified as the president of the 14th National People's Congress, the NPC. The second thing that I expect is the formal introduction of Chinese Foreign Minister, Mr. Qin Gang. He will be holding a press conference on Tuesday, the 7th of March. So we expect to get a feel of exactly where China is going in terms of its foreign policy. The third thing that I expect from the two sessions is the confirmation of Li Qiang as the Premier of the People's Republic of China. Prime Minister Li Keqiang will be resigning, I think, because he was not voted into the Central Committee when the CPC, the Chinese Communist Party, met in October last year. The fourth thing that I expect, as I alluded to earlier, is the presentation of the government report. And the government report will obviously be a scorecard of what has happened in the past year and what China intends to do in the year that is coming. And obviously that will also present the forecast of economic growth. China grew by 3% last year. It is a forecast that it will grow by 5% this year. So I expect that will be addressed. The final thing that I expect, obviously, is how China is going to adjust to the new normal now that it set itself after it suddenly abandoned the zero COVID tolerance policy at the end of 2022.